Alrighty, ladies and gents, and those in between. I just got done, researching a little bit, and about an hour ago, the 76ers and Knicks wrapped up their game. And that was by far the best series of the first round, I think, at least so far. Like, if Dallas and Los Angeles finishes on two absolute bangers, maybe it takes that over, but I doubt it. That is by far the best round, by far the best series of the first round so far. Sorry, it's a little late and my brain is a little scattered. I wanted to talk about the Sixers and what they should do next, because I think that they're in a pretty solid position as far as, eliminated teams go this season, because you look at, the Lakers, the Suns, the Clippers potentially, and a lot the Suns. I think I said the Suns, but anyway, a lot of them are in pretty rough shape as far as like their future goes. I don't think that's the case with Philadelphia. They had Tyrese Maxey break out a little bit in the postseason, and like he already had a very good season, but he showed, I think, that he has a higher ceiling than a lot of people were giving him credit for. He also is only 23, so they have a star moving forward, even if Embiid retires or, gets hurt, that sort of thing. And they also have the cap space for 2 max slots, I believe, or at least 1 max slot and like a good chunk of role players, and I believe 5 tradable picks. They have pick 15 in this year's draft and several moving forward, including a couple of Clippers picks that could be very enticing to some teams. In my eyes, they showed the most fight that they have ever shown in a playoff series, like elimination game, in this one. It was a very close game, came down to the wire. And even though Embiid had a more questionable series than his box score would lead you to believe, he still had a very solid series overall, I'd say. And a lot of the issues that he had can come down to his injuries. And I don't know how much of an excuse that can be, really, because he always an injury going on, it seems, in the postseason. But also, he was significantly limited, and he was still putting up a fight. Like, he still wanted to be out there and was playing his ass off. So I'm not saying like this to take away from Embiid. He is a fighter, right? He very good player. Probably would have won MVP this season. Would have won MVP this season if he didn't get hurt. And yeah, I can say nothing but good things about Embiid from this postseason. Besides, Jalen Brunson got some buckets on him, but it's Jalen Brunson. What are you going to do? So, looking at the offseason, the big free agent to get this season is Paul George, right? You look at PG, and he's the biggest name that is not Tyrese Maxey or LeBron James, because I believe LeBron will go back to LA. I talked about this in my Lakers video from yesterday or earlier today, depending on when this actually gets out, and I just believe LeBron will go back to LA. So you look at Paul George, and he's probably the most realistic option as far as like star players go for them to get, because you don't have to trade any of your assets to get him, and he's a free agent. And I don't believe that the Clippers will pay him a max to come back. It could happen, but I don't see it happening. If you're going to go for a max guy, Paul George is likely that player. I don't know how much that moves me as far as, Paul George next to Embiid and Maxey. Not that he's a bad player, that would be a bad fit. That would be a fantastic fit, in fact. But he struggles in the postseason a good amount of the time, and he's also injury prone and also getting up there in age. And you could say a lot of the same stuff about Embiid. And I don't know if you want to be paying him max money while you're already dealing with an injury-prone star, because we've seen with the Clippers that not work because of Kawhi and Paul George. One of them is always hurt when the other isn't. Beyond that, I mean, James Harden is there, but he's obviously not going back to the 76ers. LeBron, if LeBron wants to go to your team, you take LeBron. If you wanted to be a 76er, great signing by the 76ers. As someone who watched their team play against, the Lakers, he still has it. He gets a little gassed down the stretch, but I think next to Maxey and Embiid, his load would be lessened, and he could probably put more effort in to getting into the rim, in the fourth quarter and that sort of thing. I don't believe that's realistic. OG Anunoby is a free agent, but I mean, the Knicks are going to pay him whatever he wants, really, is what I believe, and what I think he'd deserves. And also, I don't think he would go to a team that they beat. Siakam, maybe. I see the Pacers re-signing him, though. I don't think you trade what they traded for him if you don't believe you can bring him back. Nick Claxton could be interesting, potentially, because he's a very good defender. But I don't see him and Embiid like super working great together on offense. I feel like that would be a little clunky. Not that Embiid like can't play on the perimeter and stuff, but Claxton is not a floor spacer. Embiid does do a lot of his work down low, so I don't know how that would work super well offensively. Defensively, that would be a very scary front court for people, but I don't see that working super well, especially for the amount of money that he might get. Emmanuel Quickly is there, and he's very good. If you gave him a max offer sheet, maybe you get him, but I feel like the Raptors matched that. The Raptors, traded OG Anunoby for him, and I have a hard time seeing them doing that without them seeing him as a big building block going forward. And from talking to Raptors people, my understanding is that they see him as a building block moving forward. So I think a lot of the sort of options you're looking at are like trades. So let's say they get Paul George, right? And another free agent I have not mentioned yet, Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown is great. In a role player sense, he's fantastic. I think he would play very well off of Embiid and Maxey. We saw him do it with Jamal and Jokic. I don't think he'd be quite as good as he was in Denver, but Embiid does have better playmaking than he did a few years ago. Maxey is a good guard and, can find people on backdoor cuts, that sort of thing. So I think Bruce Brown could potentially be pretty good there. And then let's say they trade, 2 firsts for Caruso. Then you're potentially looking at Maxey, Bruce Brown, Alex Caruso, Paul George, and Embiid, and that's a pretty good 5-man lineup. I think you probably move Bruce Brown or Alex Caruso to the bench and bring in, a different 3 or a 4 to put Paul George at the 3. But that is something that could be looked at, or replace one of Bruce Brown or Caruso with like Malik Monk, because, the Kings can't pay him more than, I believe, $78 million is the figure I've been seeing. So if they want more shot creation, that sort of thing, Monk could potentially be a very good option there. And I think it's important to note that this is the first time in 6 years they're not dealing with Tobias Harris's contract. This is the first time ever that they've had 2 stars, a GM and a coach, all aligned in what they want to do and the vision moving forward. And I do think that this is the best that Sixers fans should feel after an elimination game, since maybe 2018, 2019. I do think that they have a lot of pieces moving forward and that they can find a way to make it work. They have a lot of cap space to get some guys in. If they got those 3 that I mentioned and then, brought back Kelly Oubre, Nicholas Batum, that's a good 7-man rotation right there. You'd have point guard Tyrese Maxey or, probably Tyrese, shooting guard Caruso, small forward, power forward like Kelly Oubre and Paul George, and then at center Joel Embiid. That's pretty solid. And then you can make a pick at 15 and get, like a Dalton Connect or something, and he'd be a good contributor right away. Maybe Tristan da Silva is a name I've seen mocked there. There is a reason to be optimistic about the process moving forward. There is reason to be optimistic as a Sixers fan moving forward. There's also reasons to be a little skeptical. There's reasons to believe that it won't work. And I mean, I'll take a brief moment to mention those reasons, because I do feel like I've brought a lot of the positive light. I want to be, somewhat objective and bring in a little bit of the negative of Joel Embiid is injured a lot. He is a very injury-prone player. And if you were to bring in Paul George, also a very injury-prone player. Both of them have had stinkers in the playoffs. Not that they're necessarily bad playoff performers in general, but they do have a lot of stinkers on their resume. And also, who's to say that this is a good buyer's market in the offseason as far as trades go? Not a ton of people will be selling, I don't think. And the pieces that they'll want to get, other teams will want to get as well. If OKC wanted to trade for role players, I think OKC could outbid them. They have a lot of good assets, but they're mainly just draft picks. So, like, if a team wanted to trade, like, a young player for an asset rather than a pick, some front offices might take that young player. Maybe Like, there are a lot of holes you can poke in it, but I do think overall there is reason to be optimistic. And I think that Sixers fans should hold their heads high, and the process is not over. I think you give it at least one more, probably 2 more runs before you go, okay, it's not going to happen with Embiid. Because I still think that you could make a conference finals run with Embiid, potentially a finals run, if the Celtics, were to blow up. Like, injury happens to Jason Tatum, all of a sudden the East is wide open. The East is by far the weaker conference, and they have the privilege of playing in the Eastern Conference, where one good year and you can make it to the finals. And once you get to the finals, who's to say what happens, right? But yeah, that's going to be this video. If you guys liked it, leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Help me get to monetization. I'd really appreciate it. Yeah, outside of that, have a good one. Bye.